Hey guys, Chaotic Bob here, and in this video I'm sharing with you my beginner's guide for Diablo 4. In this video we'll be talking about what classes to choose, helpful tips, general mechanics of the game, what content to do on every world tier to minimize your time grinding, and much more. If you want to see more videos for Diablo 4, subscribe to the channel. Okay guys, so the first thing that we need to do is to select a class to start our first playthrough. My recommendation here is to pick a class that looks attractive to you. And don't worry about what is the meta for your first playthrough. Make sure that you pick the right class so that you enjoy the game. In short, this is what you can expect from these classes. Barbarians. Barbarians are powerful warriors who rely on brute force to subdue their enemies. Barbarians are able to swap between an array of powerful weapons during combat, ensuring that they are prepared for any situation. Barbarians can use blunt or slashing weapons, two-handed or dual-wielding weapons, and you can mix and match as you're playing. If you like fighting in your opponent's face, Barbarians might be the choice for you. Necromancers. Now, Necromancers are custodians of the balance between life and death. They can raise powerful undead armies to fight for them, while also wielding the powerful magic of bone, shadow, and blood. Necromancer is one of the best classes to play as a beginner solo player, as you can summon minions and this can distract enemies to take the damage for you. And the Necromancer is kind of a mid to long range class. The perfect class for a beginner in my opinion. Now for Sorcerer. Sorcerers are masters of the elements. They inflict cold, fire, and lightning damage to subdue their enemies. Similar to the Necromancer, the Sorcerer is a mid to long range class, but they are way more squishy. So keeping your distance as a Sorcerer is very important. Now Rogues. The cunning Rogues use whatever tools are available to get the job done. Rogues are both agile and resourceful, able to fight enemies at range with bows or up close with daggers. They're also able to imbue their weapons with various magics. Rogue is the fastest class in the game and this can be very fun for a lot of people, but similar to the Sorcerer is more on the squishy side of the spectrum. If you wanna move around like crazy, Rogue is the way to go. Now Druids. Druids are flexible and resilient. Druids harness the power of nature to protect life. Druids can shapeshift between the cunning werewolf and the powerful werebear to fight their enemies. Additionally, those who prefer spellcasting can unleash earth and storm magic from a distance. Druid is probably the tankiest class in the game, but that doesn't mean that it's a boring class. Druid is one of the classes that has the most amount of AoE skills and will cause chaos on the field. Now for the first 50 levels we will obtain a skill point each time we level up. We can use these skill points to unlock new abilities and passives to increase our power. So what do I recommend for a beginner? Well, it really depends on how you plan on playing the game. If you're gonna play the game solo, you can choose between a Necromancer or the Druid, depending on what your playstyle is. But if you're playing with friends, you can maybe consider having a Rogue, Barbarian, or a Sorcerer for DPS and combine it with a Necromancer or Druid to tank for you. Now after you selected your class, let's talk about how to play your first 50 levels with your character. When you start the game, you'll be able to choose between World Tier 1 and 2. World Tier 1 will be more for the speedrunners. You want to do the early game content as fast as possible to max switch to World Tier 3 as soon as possible. World Tier 2 on the other hand is for the challenge. This in my opinion is a more fun option for the vast majority of people. This difficulty is, I think, the one the game was intended to be played on. So the difficulty depends on what you're looking for. But my recommendation is that for your first playthrough, you go with World Tier 2, and if you plan on creating alternate characters, you can go with World Tier 1 for those. You can always change the world tier of the game whenever you need to on the fountain in Kyovashar or in the main menu. Now for your first playthrough, you'll have to complete the main story. But here's the tricky part. In World Tier 1 and 2, you soft cap at level 50, so all experience gains after level 50 will be diminished. So you really need to do a balancing act for your first 50 levels. For the first 50 levels, you really want to focus on the main story, but that doesn't mean that you need to rush it. You can do a side quest or a dungeon here and there, but really try to focus on the main story. On other characters, you can skip the main story and you can focus on the side quests, dungeons, seasonal content, or any other thing you'd like to do on the early game. Also keep in mind that there are zones on the map and each zone has a minimum level at which monsters will spawn. This is very important because if the next main quest is in a level 45 zone, but you're level 20, chances are that these monsters will eat you alive. Monsters in each zone will not scale down to your level, but as you level up, they will scale up with you. Now during your first 50 levels, I highly recommend that you do your class specific quest. These will give you a substantial power increase, and in some cases they will unlock new abilities for you. And lastly, progressing through the main story will unlock your mount. Mounts are very useful in Diablo 4, as they will let you move through the map much quicker. And as a final note on the early game, just play the game however you want to play it. If you want to do every side quest and complete every dungeon before finishing the main story, by all means, at the end of the day, this is a video game and you can play the game however you want to. Now after you beat the main story, you can tackle a capstone dungeon. Capstone dungeons are kind of checks before you can access more difficult content. There are two in the game, one to access World Tier 3 and one to access World Tier 4. After you finish the first capstone dungeon, you'll be able to access World Tier 3. And here is where you begin to see the endgame content. Now at level 50 is when we unlock our Paragon boards. Don't worry, I know Paragon boards look overwhelming, but once you understand what each does and what you need, it becomes much more simple. So let's say you're playing a Darkness Necromancer. That means that in your Paragon board, you're going to look for everything that increases your Darkness power. After level 50, you will earn 4 Paragon points per level, and you can apply this on the Paragon nodes. There are nodes that will increase your shadow damage, shadow over time, etc. And all will add up, increasing your damage with darkness abilities. If you're also struggling with staying alive, you have nodes that will increase your resistances, health, armor, or whatever it is you need to become more powerful. Paragon boards are super important in the late game. They will increase your power dramatically, so don't sleep on them. Make a little bit of effort to read and understand what each node does for you, and it will reward you in the long run. You can also earn Paragon points by earning Renown. World Tier 3 is, I think, the best place to grind for Renown. Renown is a currency earned for completing content on each region, and each region gives you rewards for completing each tier. The first 3 levels, we can complete them in World Tier 1 and 2, but the last 2 levels we need to be in World Tier 3 to complete them. We can do different things to earn Renown, and each with their respective value. But the first thing you need to do is to find every altar of Lilith. These are statues found all over the map and will give you stats to increase your power. I have guides for every region in my channel for those locations for every altar of Lilith, split by region in case you need them. As you're discovering every altar of Lilith, I highly recommend that you also discover every area and waypoint in the map. This will help us navigate through the map easier. After you're done with this, now we can start doing any other renowned content you want. You can do strongholds, side quests, or dungeons. It really doesn't matter what you choose to do. They all will contribute in the long run, and you also don't want to do exclusively dungeons. It's gonna become very boring for you. Now the good news is that you only need to do your renown farm once, and as of Season 2, renown transfers to all your characters. And as you're leveling up, you might have noticed that for the equipment you're finding, we have rarities. You have normal, magic, rare, legendary, and unique items. In short, the higher the rarity of the item, the stronger it is. If we have 2 pair of boots at the item level, 500 let's say, but one is magic and the other is rare, chances are the rare pair of boots have better stats than the magic pair of boots. Unique items, on the other hand, are as the name says, they're unique pieces of gear. These items will have aspects unique to that specific item, and can be found nowhere else. On top of the normal item rarity, we have sacred and ancestral items. These are stronger pieces of equipment with better stats that will increase your power even more. Sacred items are unlocked at World Tier 3, and ancestral items are unlocked in World Tier 4. I highly recommend that as soon as you start seeing sacred items in World Tier 4, you start changing all your gear for those stronger pieces of equipment. And the same goes for ancestral items. After we're done with the renown farm, now it is finally time to attack the endgame content of Diablo 4. These are world bosses, Tree of Whispers, Helltides, Legion events, and Nightmare dungeons. These are all a great way to level up your character, and I do recommend that at least until you're level 80, you mix and match all of these to enjoy the game to its fullest potential. I believe the endgame is a topic for a different video, so we'll leave this video here. But for now, you should have all the knowledge to know what to do in your first 50 hours in Diablo 4. I also have a merchant guide if you want to take a look. I go into what each merchant does and why you need to know how each merchant can help you become even stronger. And that's all for this video, guys. If it was useful, please leave a like, it really helps out. And if you want to see more videos for Diablo 4, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching and I'll see you on the next one. Later.